Well, welcome back, everybody. We're excited to kick off this week's episode of the Rethink Marketing Podcast. Again, welcoming guest Bri Hadnot in to talk a little bit more about AEO. Last time we left the conversation talking about entity search engine optimization, answer engine optimization, things we should be considering instead of keyword stuffing, to really building expertise and having expert opinion and informed opinion here so we can show up in the AI summaries and in these answer engines like Claude, ChatGPT, etc. So Bri, welcome back. Let's dive back in and let's talk about, maybe let's kick things off by just level setting. What are a couple of misconceptions about AEO that you've seen recently?
I think right now we're still in like this wild west where people are just like, they're loving it for the use of how it's making things a little bit easier in their day-to-day lives. But I don't really see people really fully understanding it or utilizing it like at full capacity, really. So I think right now we're in simple searches. Like, I think I know people that are doing like really cool workout plans, making it a personal trainer, but not fully understanding the capacity that it has actually.
That's really interesting. There's a lot of capability that I think we're on the beginning of, and it's been fun to be deep in it and kind of see how things have progressed. How do we understand what the capabilities are? I mean, there's so much information out there. There are an infinite number of podcasts and blogs and just even platforms to go explore. How do you stay on top of what's going on here? Because, like you said, it's a big subject, and most of us are just using it in its infancy.
I think one thing I love to do is be a part of Google Search Labs. They're always showing what's coming out next. They let you do beta testing. So I tend to be able to play around with things way before it's actually released to the public. But anybody could join. I'm not special. I didn't do anything special to Google. You just ask and they say okay, and they'll let you, use new tools and be on the forefront. I would say also be networking. Even myself, I'm not someone that's like a physical networker as much as I'm a digital networker, but your places like LinkedIn, your Slack channels, your Discords, they have even your YouTubes your podcasts have really, really smart people that are going out of their way to kind of break this down and doing a lot of groundbreaking research. I've already gotten some really cool white papers where people are researching, the different platforms and what influences those on a like platform to platform level, which I'm sure took hours and hours and hours and a lot of teamwork to understand. And people are doing that work. And I think when you are showing interest and you're talking to these thought leaders and presenting yourself as a part of the conversation, you can be on that cutting edge of what's going on and in the know. Don't be an island.
So for those that haven't tried this yet, I encourage you to do some prompts in your own business and look at a few different platforms. I did it recently with ChatGPT and Grok and Perplexity, looking at a few different. Use the same prompt and keep prompting using the same prompt and see what the answers are like between the three different platforms or four or five or how many you want to do. So it's interesting to see those that are citing certain resources, those that are picking up, the Bri, you talk about maybe 25 different opportunities where all of this answer knowledge is coming from. So definitely encourage that. Bri, one of the questions I have is what type of businesses and industries are benefiting the most from AEO?
I think that the businesses that are benefiting the most are the ones who can educate the client. So I've seen a lot of health, like doctors, hospitals, networks of that nature. They were early flyers. Like I saw them take off before I was really ready to answer the questions. Their content is, especially if they're doing the resources, that content is so rich. And because any person can go and say, I have a foot pain, what's going on? That's a hot question to be answering because that can impact anyone. Also, these education-based questions, so things that the everyday person is doing. So between just learning and then things like, their body pain of that nature, and then of course law and legal. Some of the platforms have gotten away from trying to answer some of those legal questions out there because they're a little afraid. So for a little while, I was getting a little statement like we aren't comfortable answering certain questions, but I think they've even moved to like just show you the sources where they got it instead of saying no. So even those people with those type of resources are now seeing a lot of engagement that way too.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm curious to know, and I don't have this stat, but the types of funnel searches that are being done on answer engines versus search engines. When I think about, I'll use Amazon as a search engine, a lot of the searches on a search engine like Amazon or an answer engine like Amazon are being done very low funnel. I bought, rodent repellent. I was having some issues with some mice getting into my AC unit, for example. So I'm doing very low funnel searches because my intent is to purchase something that solves a problem that I have on the search engine of Amazon. Versus when I'm going to a ChatGPT or a Gemini or something, it's probably a lot more. I don't even know if it's in the funnel. I'm just doing a little bit more intellectual work or a little bit more regular research work. So, Bri, when we're thinking about answer engines, as marketers, how do we put on the right hat to think of, this is totally outside the funnel. I'm just building awareness. This is top of funnel. This is mid funnel. This is lower funnel. It was way easier with SEO because you were looking at these long tail keywords and you were thinking about the way you were ranking, and you wanted to bring in a certain amount of high level traffic, but you also wanted to bring in a majority of low funnel traffic, etc. So I'll hand it over to you. Just help us understand that.
So I'm so data driven that I don't even think like, okay, this is a long tail keyword versus a short tail keyword. I literally go to a website, reverse engineer the search, and I put in the name of the industry and I say, what are people searching? So I don't even try to pretend as if I can understand, because it's so many people out there looking for the answers for so many different reasons. So I don't want to put myself in a position of like, oh, they're definitely looking for this. I would like to be able to, and it makes me feel more comfortable talking to a client too. Like, hey, this is data. This isn't me just giving you some idea. This is what people are searching about your industry. Let's answer what people are searching. So I think that's probably the best route for, at least right now. I've seen a lot of success with doing it that way. The things I'm writing are in the AI overview because that question's unanswered. People are asking it and it's unanswered. Someone needs to be the person to answer it. And some of the times that question is top of the funnel, but as if that person's a qualified lead and is going to make a conversion, you still have so much time to do headings, add elaborations, sell your product. You still have the time there to make that happen. But I think it should be always important. First, show it's almost like no one cares what you know until they know that you care. Answer the question first, and then you start showing what you know, and then you can then convert them through the funnel. But first, you kind of have to meet them where they are. This is what they're looking for. And it may seem redundant to you. Like, I know a lot of people are like, I've been doing this for 30 years. Everybody knows this. A lot of people don't know. So be open to the idea that what seems, regular knowledge to you, standard, anybody doing this should know this by now. People join industries every day and have new ideas and don't know things and are trying to get answers. And so the more you're patient with that process of learning and sharing what you know and answering their questions, the more likely they are to work with you and build that relationship.
So, Colin, you've mentioned it a couple times over the last couple episodes about how you're utilizing AI and search. And, I'm just curious, Bri, Colin's not unique in this situation where utilizing it more for research. And, Colin, your example of utilizing Amazon to get to the answer to buy a product. Why are people not utilizing as much on the AI search to find the product? Are you seeing that, Bri, where it's more, we talk about conversational and trying to figure out what is the best this or that? Why are people not utilizing ChatGPT, for example, to find that rodent spray or repellent that Colin had mentioned before?
I think because the start of that, Colin knows his solution. He's not saying, hey, I have a problem with cicadas. I don't know what to do. He's saying, I have a rodent and I want to get rid of it and I want to repel it. So he's already in his solution era. He's not on the same journey as someone saying, where did all these cicadas come from? And then go through that process of understanding why and how and what's going on. He kind of already knew what he was looking for. He just wanted to know the right product for that. And definitely, you could have put that in Chat GPT and they would have recommended you the top 4 based on the top ratings and what people say about them and what the side effects are and what you should worry about. They would have gave you a whole rundown, but because you kind of went about it in a different search route, you got a different kind of result. But it would have done the same kind of processing and thought processing that you would typically get, even if you were looking for something like, who should I contact to fix my garage door?
Well, and this leads to a really interesting point as well, Bri, which is kind of tangential to what you said, but in the same way that we used to see there were, 5 major national media outlets, and now there are thousands of these sort of micro fragmented media outlets. Used to be the Google search engine, right? 85, 90, 95, 97% of search traffic was flowing through Google, depending on which country you were in and which time period you were looking at and things of that nature. But 90+% of search traffic in the US for a long duration of time flowing through Google. And now we're seeing, call it because of the rise in TikTok as a search engine, call it the rise of ChatGPT as an answer engine, or whatever you want to say, is we're seeing that decrease. And now we're seeing more fragmentation where I might actually go to Amazon to search for a product solution, or Target or Walmart or whatever, but I'm not going to Google to start. I might go to ChatGPT or to Gemini or to another product when I'm doing research, just generally speaking about ways that I might need a consultant, I might not need a consultant, I might need a research partner, I might not. Let's start here. So it's interesting now to think too about, how do we, from an answer engine optimization perspective as marketers, how do we think about this sort of fragmentation in the marketplace?
I think that fragmentation, like you said, they're going to all these different platforms to get the answer, but fortunately, they still have to kind of circle back around and look at the same internet that we look at every day. So if you're doing the right things on your website and you even if you had been following the traditional SEO paths, I think you still have a really big opportunity to win. If you had been answering, even if you got bad reviews, had you just simply said, hey, we hear you, we see you, call us, let's rectify this situation, I think you're still in a good position to be a winner. That fragmentation, yes, is a little more spaced out, but they're all coming back. A lot of them link back to your entities, whether it's a listing citation on a local list or a national list, or if it's just your simple website or your Google business profile, it still ties back to you, or even your LinkedIn. It's tying back to you and what you're putting out there, and then how you are interacting with your consumers.
All right. So, Bree, I'm going to jump to another question that I have. And in a lot of things that we do at the agency, it's sales and marketing integration, right? So, interested to see how AEO is impacting lead generation or conversions differently than traditional SEO.
So the way answer engines are impacting this search a little bit differently is because when you type in, I need someone to fix my garage in Cincinnati, they're going to give you 3 or 4, just as you probably they're going to give you that recommendation. So it's not you type in garage services near me and just going down a list and looking at each website. Instead, it's going to be about 5, and they're going to tell you, this person's rated well, this is what people say about them, this is what you can expect, and then they're going to give you that list. And then it's likely that the consumer is probably going to pick from that top 5, that 5 that were listed there, and make that phone call a lot quicker. So that buyer journey is a lot shorter. People aren't doing as much resource because for whatever reason, their trust in these large learning platforms is there. So from the time that they ask that question, they're almost ready to get on a call.
No, it goes back to a point that I made earlier, maybe on the last conversation that we had last week. And, the whole referral piece, or you bring up a great point about trust. It's interesting how quickly consumers are trusting these large language models and the answer that it's spitting out. Interested to see how many people are actually challenging it. A lot of times I'll see an answer that I don't like and I'll prompt it again. But what you just said, do you feel like is there much research that you've done that is showing that people are trusting the answers that are coming back?
Yeah, no, there is research that suggests that people are quicker to make a conversion when they get that recommendation from those platforms. I think that has a lot to do with the absence of ads. When people aren't seeing ads, they tend to feel like it's a trusted source because they're not getting paid from telling me this, so they must be telling me the truth. And then that kind of brings that reference idea of like, okay, well, since they're not getting paid to get up to recommend this person, then they must just be good. And then therefore, it's almost like talking to a friend, right? And they feel comfortable with that. And I think that's what is promoting that conversion to be a little bit faster.
That's interesting. And, in the research that I've done, it seems like some of the platforms are trying to get to a paid model at some point. Some are reluctant, at least at this point, to move forward with that. And, what you just mentioned as far as that trust factor and the ads, that's something that could come into play for sure. So one of the next question I have is, can you give some real world examples of AEO in action? For instance, featured snippets. People also ask voice results, AI overviews we've talked about, but a couple more real world examples.
I mean, they're there. I think one I saw that. I mean, I was working with our developer. He's also really interested in AI as well. So we were talking about it, working through it. I think the very next day after our conversation, he's like, Brianka, someone called, my dad's company, and were ready to convert and make a deal with him. And he asked like, how did they get that conversion? It came directly from ChatGPT. So those convert he said I did a quick chat gpt search and then I found you. Another time hanging out in Walmart, they were sitting there trying to figure out which oil filter to get. They were confused and he was like, why are we even thinking about this? He just quickly starts talking to chat gpt and getting his answers so much faster. And as a marketer, you're kind of like, is this how people are using this information now? And it makes you want to go back and cross all your T's and dot all your I's because that's where your schema markup comes to play. That's where things like really talking about what that product does and the details and the features and the benefits it has, which is something that we've consistently been told as in SEO and in marketing and in copywriting. But it's right there in the field. Like if you're not taking the time to really list that and not only listening it from what your stakeholders might think makes you special, but looking at your views that you've built over time and saying, this is what makes us special. This is what clients appreciate about us. Let's add this into a part of our copy in a way that it can be pulled and digested in a real time way that helps people.
No, that totally makes sense. I know in my personal life and also business, when I run into challenges or there's a question mark when we're in a meeting, instead of tabling something till the next week where everybody can go research it and then come back, there are some instances where in real time, we're utilizing AI to quickly get to the root of a problem, and then challenging ourselves to get to that next step. So I do feel like it is speeding things up. You mentioned the example in retail, and then also in business itself. So great point there. Do you think that AEO will eventually replace traditional SEO, or are they complementary?
I think they're complementary. I honestly feel like SEO is like your foundation. You can't start doing AEO work. You can't stop. Let me go change all this content how I wrote it. You first have to start thinking like, okay, I didn't miss a step when I was building my SEO framework and making sure you're working with SEO teams who truly care, who aren't just doing the technical side. Hey, we saw this, we fixed this, but someone said like, hey, we're doing the research and we're coming up with these ideas. This is what the people in your industry are talking about. We want to kind of be on a pioneering side of this, and having the trust with that marketing team that you're working with and knowing that they're trying to lead you in the right direction. So saying kind of yes more than you're saying no to some of the ideas and being willing to test the waters that way.
No, it totally makes sense. What is it in the world of SEO and AEO that you see that businesses should be preparing for next? There's always that, foreshadowing. There's always that research, that the trends that you're looking at, what is it that businesses should be preparing for that isn't much talked about currently?
I think they need to be preparing for that social listening aspect, that who you are is more of what the people are saying about you. So kind of cleaning up those, nasty relationships that might have been out there and kind of ignored, and you felt like, oh, there's a misunderstanding and I already explained it, going back and just making things right with that consumer. One thing that kind of strikes me is the way I know people utilize reviews. It tends to be something that I'm either really really happy, or I'm really really angry, or someone directly asked me for a review, and those are only kind of 3 times that I kind of do a review. And mostly it's when I'm directly asked. And I know that for me, I'm typically a little slow to draw on like a negative review, because I understand like things happen. Let's not destroy their reputation. But because people are quicker to pull out their phone and kind of weaponize, technology, I think we need to be thinking as, business owners, thought leaders, things of that nature, about how we can make the relationship and rectify the relationship in real time, and not being afraid to kind of go above and beyond and really bring back the hospitality element that comes into customer service.
Yeah, interesting point there. Years ago, social listening, I felt like smaller I felt like smaller or, medium-sized businesses kind of said, "Hey, I've got so much to focus on from a marketing standpoint. Do I really need to be worried about the social listening aspect, or should we just leave that up to the bigger brands?" And the conversation that we're having with you today, it seems like even those small to medium-sized businesses, and you mentioned the forecasting or the foreshadowing of it, is that it needs to happen now. It needs to happen now. Maybe there's some things, if you don't have a big enough marketing team to look at an agency to outsource some of these things to, but social listening is here.
Yeah, no, I think at first people were using it to come up with really cool, trendy ways to kind of be at the top of social media. And they were, oh, this is the new trend. And if I jump on this, my post will go viral. This isn't that. I'm not asking anyone to, if you don't want to be on TikTok and do a dance, that's not what we're meaning now. We're really talking about how that sales floor process and is now a part of your brand reputation, long lasting. So you're like, oh, that happened 5 years ago and we all forgot about it. But it's still a part of like your Google reviews. It's a part of your brand. It's changing the way people are influenced by you. And those one offs have a bigger voice now. When they get on your Google business profile, when they get on these social media and they start ranting or saying something about you, that voice is amplified in these large language models. And so you need to be thinking about, how am I going to respond in a way that shows that I care, that reflects my honesty and my authenticity in my business. Because I truly believe that no business owner wants to be upsetting a client. Like, I think every time it happens, you kind of feel this like, oh, what did I do? And how can I be better? And it hurts. And it's almost something that a lot of people, I think smaller businesses kind of teeter away from. And it kind of even brings some people away from the business world. But I think instead of taking that at ideal, you need to be very proactive and really thinking of ways to build that customer relationship, and really prioritizing happiness, because their voice is so large, and it's getting larger every day. People want to know, like you said, they want a review from their neighbor, they want a referral from this person. Now they want that referral coming from, very trusted, and the people that are putting out that information. Yeah, some consumers may be like me and take it with a grain of salt, but others are wanting to see how you even just respond to it.
Yeah, absolutely. We always encourage that, don't we? For no matter if it's positive or negative, to be responding for sure. Are there any huge misconceptions about AEO that you're seeing?
I think right now people aren't recognizing that it's going to be influencing how we buy. I think right now people are thinking like, oh, I'll get on here and, I'll put in 5 things in my fridge and I'll come up with an idea what to make for dinner, or I'll build me a 6 week workout plan before my vacation. But people are utilizing it in very complex ways, like Colin, who's doing SWOT analysis and all this business research and is pulling all these citations. And then some people are saying, I need someone to come fix my garage door. I need them to come today. I need some emergency. Who can come to my door today and fix this? And they're utilizing it for that. So not to underestimate how much of the buying journey has actually moved over there as well. People aren't just buying and, going straight to Amazon or going straight here. And your ads may not convert like they used to because they're over there getting a qualified answer, what they feel like isn't paid or sponsored, and therefore is more trustable than any other answer they can get.
Interesting on that point, because of the world of instant gratification. Everybody wants something now. You mentioned, the example of who can get here today or what product can get here before tomorrow. So definitely interesting to see, when you're getting trusted advice from, an answer engine, when you're typing it in, are people willing to wait if it's better, if it's a product that can't be delivered till Friday versus getting that product or service done today by something that you might not be happy with?
I agree. I actually had to have that kind of mental shift for myself because I got very comfortable with the 2-day shipping. But I think I started realizing, hey, like the quality on some of the things that I'm kind of get quickly isn't necessarily there. And I think that shift is kind of going around and people are giving themselves more time to get exactly what they're looking for, to kind of reduce the idea of, going back and purchasing it again. Because I think even for myself, I think I bought something retail. It got to me, and because of tariffs and shipping and things like that, they were like, you can either ship it back to us or we can give you 20% off and you can keep the product. And the shipping process of it all was just like, I'll just keep it and lose the money. So so I think that people are going to start seeing that a little bit more as we shift the way we kind of get products and things come to us. I think they're going to start thinking about, okay, well, I really want something that I can kind of like and enjoy versus me wanting it fast. So I think that's going to be something that's changing quite quickly, especially with just some of the things that are happening around us.
Totally makes sense. So one of the things that we typically ask our guests is, what are you rethinking today? It can be business, personal. It can be something unrelated to what we're talking about in this conversation. It can be marketing in general. So is there something that you're rethinking, Bri?
Man, I've rethought just how I've approached the learning process of all this. I think I was going in it and I was looking at it, and it has been quite the mountain to be climbing. And working with our team, talking to our colleagues, it was like, well, if the first step seems too big, then you didn't take a small enough step yet. And just learning to be very okay with the journey and understanding that it can be long, but it also can be very rewarding. And I think it's been really exciting as I've rethought that and worked through that to see, okay, when I take my time with it and I work through it, we start seeing results, and the results come quickly and you can be really satisfied with that effort you put in. So just kind of slowing down. I know in a world where everything is sped up, I'm telling you to slow down. It sounds a little absurd and contradictory, but I think it's about quality more than it's about the quantity of the content or getting it fast or doing it quickly, but just making sure that you're crossing those T's and dotting those I's.
There you go. Well, Bri, we've really appreciated your time, appreciated the interview the last couple episodes, and your expertise when it comes to SEO and AEO.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's been a joy.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining us on the Rethink Marketing Podcast. Until next time, keep rethinking those common assumptions. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If people want to connect with us, where should they go, Paul?
RethinkMarketingPodcast.com, Colin. What can listeners do to help us in return for the sage marketing wisdom and our pithy humor?
They can help us by leaving a review on their favorite platform or sharing this episode with a fellow marketer to help them cut through the clutter.
Well, until next time, keep rethinking those common assumptions.